hand down a bit.
Left hand down a bit, it is, sir.
Steady. Steady at that. Ship on station, sir.
Good. Good man, Mr. Phillips.
Come on, Murray, sir. I'm not happy about this test firing with these talpinium shells. It's a risk, sir. I've seen them. They look horribly on a mini mouse to me, sir.
Nonsense, Chief. They're perfectly safe. Right, gentlemen. This is it. 0 hour. All guns. Fire!
Fire! Fire!
Gosh. These talpinium shells are a lot quieter than our old ones. Which way did they go?
They didn't, sir. They're jammed in the gun barrels and their little detonators are primed.
Ooh, nasty.
Nonsense, Chief. Obviously, they're duds.
Excuse me, Commander Murray, sir. If there's no danger, why are our gun barrels swelling up and getting bigger?
Pardon? Everybody down!
Hello, this is Una Stubbs, and those two frantic words bellowed by Chief Petty Officer Pertwee, everybody down, have provided the title for this 2-hour memory of Jon Pertwee. Jon was a very positive man and performer who set high standards in whatever he did, whether it was television, the stage, films or radio. And Navy Lark fans will be pleased to know that a complete edition of the programme from 1960 will be broadcast as part of this tribute at 11:30. John Devon Roland Pertwee was born on July the 7th, 1919. His father, Roland, was a successful actor and playwright. His elder brother, Michael, also turned to writing. And John had a cousin, Bill, who is best known for his part in Dad's Army as Air Raid Warden Hodges. John was a son of Armistice Day, as he recalled in his autobiography, Moon Boots and Dinner Suits.
Conceived on the 11th of November 1918, I'm the result of one joyful, victorious night. Roland, my father, and Abbess, my mother, had reached a trial separation when they bumped into one another by chance while celebrating V-Day amongst the jubilant crowds in Piccadilly Circus. I don't know if it was the heady atmosphere of victory or some nostalgic rekindled passion which drove them into that fateful connubial embrace, but 9 months later it produced an unwanted, instantly demanding and very noisy consequence.
The young Pertwee went to several schools, being expelled from one for swinging on lavatory chains pretending to be Tarzan. He wasn't, however, an academic, as this report from Wellington House School, Westgate-on-Sea, testifies.
Latin, he has not been working too well, and I want to see more sustained effort. French, not a particularly auspicious start. He needs a greater sense of responsibility. Mathematics, he has a great inclination for talking, and until he can apply himself more readily, progress will not be as good as it should be.
He was not, though, insensitive to the needs of others. When he was 12, John heard the Prime Minister talking about the country's unstable economy and sent a modest financial contribution. He received this reply.
Dear Master Jon Pertwee, the Prime Minister has asked me to tell you that he has received your letter and to say how much he appreciates the kind thought which prompted you to send 2 and 6pence as a gift to the Exchequer. Yours sincerely, E.M. Watson.
Given his family background, John was obviously not going to have much opposition in taking up acting as a career. He once said that because it was the family business, he never had to struggle to join it. He went to RADA, but he didn't take kindly to some aspects of the Thespian regime, and was eventually ejected from the school because he refused to perform as a wind in a Greek drama. But before he left, he played 2 small parts in a student production at which the adjudicator, Noel Coward, was convinced that the roles were played by 2 different actors. Despite his failure at RADA, he found work with a travelling theatre company and on Jersey before going into repertory at Brighton. The company performed 2 plays each week, a system that was a bit confusing at times. One day, he was waiting in the wings, nattily attired as a gardener.
And I had a green baize apron, and I had a spade beard, and a terrible gnarled face, and an old battered hat. And corncob pipe. And I rushed down onto the stage, and the head of the company said, "Hello, and what are you supposed to be?" And I said, "I'm the gardener, in love from a stranger." He said, "Are you? Well, we're playing Candida. You are the vicar, and you're supposed to be on the stage now."
In the 1930s, many actors sought work at the BBC because radio was a useful shop window. Jon had some success in the medium and made his first broadcast on March the 13th, 1938, in a play called Voyage to the Sun. He played 4 parts and received 7 guineas for his efforts. His father weighed in on Jon's behalf to bring him to the attention of BBC television, writing to Gerald Cock, who was in charge at the time. Cock sent Jon to see the producer Cecil Madden, who subsequently wrote this in a memorandum.
I saw young Pertwee yesterday at your request. He's a very pleasant young man, but not good-looking, and therefore cannot be much more than a juvenile character actor. As such, he's rather difficult to place, since there are so many character actors of much the same type.
In fact, Jon did not appear on television until after the war, but he did get some more radio work, and in 1938 travelled to Belfast to take part in Lillibalero, a drama about the Great Siege of Londonderry in 1688. Jon played 2 characters. One of them was Colonel Richards, a diarist.
Wednesday, the 19th of June. Council of War held on board the Swallow. It was concluded that it being manifest there was a boom made over the river above Brook Hall, consisting of a chain and several couples floated up with timbers linked together with iron. And, finding that the town of Londonderry has not sent any message to us of their condition, which in the opinion of the Council of War was a great assurance they were neither pressed much by the enemy by want of victuals or provisions, for these and other reasons the Council of War thought it more prudent not to run any imminent danger in going up the river, but to continue here in Loch Foyle till more forces joined us from England or Scotland.
Although Jon had got his break in radio via the BBC, he also did some work for commercial radio before the war, recording programmes in London for Radio Luxembourg and Radio Normandy. These were serials, or what we would now call soap operas, and they included Marmaduke Brown, Backstage Wife, and Stella Dallas, which was sponsored by California Syrup of Figs. But as 1939 wore on, it became obvious that he would have to join the forces, so he opted for the Navy, on the basis that it was likely to keep him away from the fighting. He became Ordinary Seaman Pertwee, PJX 178358, and on the 29th of November 1940, he was posted to HMS Hood. One day, the captain summoned Seaman Pertwee to his cabin and asked him to talk about acting. Puzzled but compliant, Jon was then told that he had passed the captain's test and was now an officer cadet. He was taken off HMS Hood and went to Portsmouth to start his training. This proved to be extremely fortunate for him, as the ageing Hood was destined to engage the German battleship Bismarck soon after he left.
She sailed into action against the Bismarck, the biggest battleship in the world, and the fastest, and the Hood was quick, but she'd had her magazine hatch covers made into very thin ones and made her light enough to catch the Bismarck, but she was quick. And the Hood just sailed on, and it got the first shell into the Bismarck. Bismarck then got the range of the Hood, and the awful thing was the very first shell hit the daylight workshop flat underneath the bridge, and all the upper guns' crews had all closed up in that because they weren't going to be used, the higher guns. And the whole lot were killed, and practically everybody was killed on the bridge as well. The third salvo landed forward of X turret. It went straight down through 2 wooden decks, hit the armoured deck, exploded, and because of these thin hatch covers, they just blew in, and the blast went down, hit the magazine, and whoop, the ship exploded. It went down in 9.5 seconds. 1,768 men died, and 3 survived.
He then became Sub-Lieutenant J.D.R. Pertwee Special Branch and moved to the Isle of Man. He formed an amateur company while on the island, and in April 1942 staged Night Must Fall by Emlyn Williams. A local critic was quite impressed.
Danny, played by a sub-lieutenant in the RNVR named Pertwee, was really magnificent. Having seen the play in London, and having seen it on the films, we would give Mr. Pertwee's portrayal of Danny as the best of them. He has before him a fine future on the English stage.
Jon was next dispatched to London and was seconded to the Naval Broadcasting Section, which produced and recorded programmes for all three services. While he was there, came an incident which was to shape his future career.
The latter part of the war, I was with the Naval Intelligence Division on the security staff, and I was sent by my commanding officer to the Criterion Theatre to listen to Lieutenant Eric Barker, who had a naval show then called Mediterranean Merry-Go-Round. And it seems that he was making rather satirical jokes about milords of the Admiralty and the politicians in power at the time, and they said, go and check him out because he's coming a bit strong on this. And I went along to listen to him. And you remember he shouted out, he said, where's Lieutenant Nelson Burton? And they said, oh, he's not here today, he's got the flu. He said, oh, goodness, well, who's going to do the shouting from the audience? And I said, well, I will, Mr. Barker. And he said, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm a spy, actually. I'm here to spy on you, but let me do it and I won't spy. And I remember very well the line that started me in the variety business, and he was arguing with Pearl Hackney. And there was a terrible row going on, and I had to suddenly shout from the audience, leave him alone, you're always picking on the poor perisher. And I remember Pearl turned to Eric and said, who on earth was that? And Eric said, oh, that was the Minister of Education, which was exactly the sort of joke that I was sent along to stop.
Here's Merry-Go-Round going round the services week by week, bringing music and fun to boys and girls in khaki and 2 shades of blue. To all you servicemen and women wherever you are. This week the predominating colour is once again navy blue.
Every actor throughout history has waited for his big break, and this was Jon's. He joined the cast of Merry-Go-Round and remained with Eric Barker for the next 5 years. He paid homage to Eric in his autobiography.
Those were great days and were my stepping stone to bigger and better things. For this, I thank most sincerely my mentor, Eric Barker. He was a brilliant writer, broadcaster and film actor. If it was not for him and the break he gave me, I would in all probability still be a jobbing actor.
Jon quickly proved himself to be a versatile comedy actor, and following his naval career, it seemed only right that one of his first parts in the show should be a sailor. A portent of things to come, perhaps?
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine, come on.
Where are we?
Eh? Why, the Admiralty.
Oh, yes, of course. I never thought I'd end my naval career by camping out and roughing it at the Admiralty. Where's the rest of our party?
Well, Petty Officer Crow and Doris Pemberton had to slip off to Inverness to do a Sunday concert. Yes, and Wren Hackney's foraging.
Foraging?
Yes, she's foraging for breakfast. Oh, here she comes now. Any luck?
Yes, I found some tea.
Good. Where?
Well, there's a cupboard in the second Sea Lord's office marked top secret. Danger, high voltage, positively no admittance and keep out. I found the key in the lock.
What did you find in the cupboard?
A case of scotch, a bottle of fruity cup cocktail port style.
That's for distinguished guests. Yes, go on.
And a packet of tea. So now I've got the kettle on.
Oh, good. Well, we only want some breakfast to go with it.
Oh, that's all right. That's all laid on. There's a ship's biscuit in the 5th Sea Lord's office. Oh, yes, it's propping the door open.
Jon as able seaman Pertwee with Eric Barker and Pearl Hackney. Jon was always on the lookout for new characters and created one quite by chance when he heard the news in Norwegian on the BBC.
So I came back the next week and I brought a character with me because I'd heard on the news, and that's Alvarlig Dell at the end of the news. Good night. Here is the news in Norwegian, and the voice said, so I went to Eric and I said, I've got a character for you. He said, what is it? I said, he's a Norwegian seaman. His name's Svensson. And Eric said, yes, what does he say? I said, he says, so Eric said, is that funny? I said, it will be.
There's only one man at HMS Waterlogged I don't mind leaving out of all the hundreds who ought to be there and the few who are who haven't pushed off. That's Svensson, the Norwegian stoker. I've never met a more aggressive man, without a spot of consideration for others. Thank goodness I shall never hear his voice again. Here. Svensson, what are you doing here in that hat?
Arun?
Ask him, Pearl, what's he doing here in the Admiralty?
Yes, sir. Jouden, negative clopty bombit.
Right.
Jeden, niggity kroppity bombit. Somebody he knows, come on, you know, come on, he's the somebody, TV, wavy TV. Somebody he knows, come on, here, come on, or somebody, you go, right?
He said you came away without saying goodbye to him.
He's come all this way, just all those horrid things I said behind his back just now. Svensson, I'm deeply touched by your gesture in coming all this way just to say goodbye to me in that hat. It must have cost you a lot.
Boom.
He said it would have cost him more if he hadn't come. He's merely come to collect the quid you've borrowed from his pay every week for the past 2 years.
If Svensson was a little outlandish, so were some of the other eccentrics which John created for the programme. For example, Robin Fly.
Good morning, Mr. Barker. Did I say morning?
Oh, good morning, Mr. Fly. Did you say good?
Certainly, good and morning. Did I say in?
Yes. Did I say, please come in. Mind your head on the icicle. Too late.
You know, it's very easy to remove icicles. Board of Trade doesn't ask the impossible. Did I say civil? To move all the snow would be impracticable. Did I say bull? But after all, we are not a Gestapo. Did I say...
How are you keeping?
But, my dear Barker, icicles blocking the doorway. Unavoidable inefficiency. And efficiency is the ticket. Did I say ticket?
Yes, you said ticket.
Yes, and the radio set still here, I see.
Well, all work and no play, you know, Mr. Fly.
No, not a bit of it, not a bit of it. Oh. Oh, that's music. Oh, you don't know what that does to me. It sends little squiggly tremors up and down my vertebrae. Go on, turn it off before I make a silly billy of myself.
No, Mr. Fly.
Mr. Fly? How many more times? I'm Robin.
So we must have a little beauty in life, Robin. Music and...
Music. Oh, so delicious. This reminds me of those lovely spring days years ago when my nanny used to take me in the woods. Did your nanny ever take you in the woods?
I don't think so, but I once took somebody else's nanny.
When he was interviewed for the public ear in 1964, John talked about creating voices for his characters.
A lot of dialects, a lot of voices come from positioning of mouths. For example, I'm speaking now in my normal voice, but if I thrust my jaw forward, so I underhang my lower jaw, immediately the voice changes. Now I'll give you an example. I'm going to throw my chin forward, now immediately I'm talking like that. And I'm not in any way altering my voice, but that's exactly how it comes out if you push your jaw underneath your top teeth, and that's how the voice comes out. I'm not putting on a voice at all.
So therefore, if you position your face, different sounds come out of it. That's why people talk, I think, in these extraordinary ways, and therefore it has a reality.
And we can hear just how he used that technique with the lower jaw in another scene from Merry-Go-Round, in which we also hear Richard Gray as the refined Lord Waterlogged.
Like me, I don't know, I can't see a thing. I'd switch the light on if I wasn't on me honour. Where's me lighter? Now then. Oh, keep it down! Whoa! Keep it dark. What do you think we've all been doing lately?
It's Lord Waterlogged, is it not?
That's it, old Yep.
The chairman of the Waterlogged Spa Company.
That's right.
Ah, and then, sir, perhaps you conceivably recognize this.
Why, it's a pistol.
Exactly. I found it last night in the room of your butler, Bridgemont.
You were in his room?
Yes. This pistol is loaded with cartridges containing laughing gas. You see to what I am inferring.
Oh, yes, I see that. But I don't get the hang of what you're driving at.
Why should your butler, Bridgemont, have in his possession a pistol that fires laughing gas? Can it be resolved down to a logical QED?
Of course not. It's a case of putting two and two together. He used to be a producer at the BBC.
Well?
Well, with his shows, I expect he had to keep firing at the flipping audience.
Merry-Go-Round later became Waterlogged Spa, and it was for that programme that John created his most popular character and gave him a voice that was to reappear many years later, the Postman.
He was based on an old man that we used to deliver letters to in our house down in Devonshire when we were kids, and this old fella, he delivered the letters, and he told me one day, he said, you know, Mr. Pertwee, he said, I've walked 3 times round the world in distance, he said, in gumboots. He said, and you can imagine the condition of my feet. He says, an old pair of sawed-off gumboots. I've walked the equivalent of 3 times round the world. And he says, when I get to your hill, and I look up there and I see that great house sitting up on the top of the hill, he says, Coral, I'm not going up there, and I throw them letters on the floor. He says, mind you, it's got a bit to do with the scrumpy I've had on the way up, he says, but I think all them young fellers, they come down, they can pick up them, they can deliver them themselves.
Here are your letters, me old darling. Oh, they're last week's, so they're fairly fresh.
Thank you, Postman. Is that a GPO uniform you're wearing this morning?
Oh, the bottom half of it, my dear, all right, but the hat here is salvage from one of me old campaigns.
Oh, when you were in the Bow Street Runners?
Oh, no, my dear, I'd never run anywhere. No. So this were when I were attached to the 97th Brigade de Foot in the Postal Department, of course, my dear. I were in Russia, you see. The officer, he come up to me one day and he says, take your mail back, Postman, and right up there, he says, all through the Valley of Death. I says, well, how far is it, sir? He says, oh, it's about half a league onward. Well, my dear, it were nothing but cannons, volleying and thundering the whole time. And I hadn't got far before I said to myself, I said, Postman, I said, somebody's blundered. So I turned around, my dear, and I come back.
You still had your letters intact?
But all that was left of them.
All that was left of them?
Oh, all that was left of them. Left of the 600. Oh, so what does it matter what you do as long as you tear them up? Don't matter it.
John was also enrolled in the cast of another popular series of the time, Up the Pole, which starred Jimmy Jewell and Ben Warris. You may think that the character here is also strangely similar to another one he played subsequently, but I couldn't possibly comment.
What's your mate? Oh,
Well, Burpee, fancy seeing you again.
Yes. What have you been doing all these months? Working?
No, only mugs work. So I've been doing the old currency lark, you know, all around now.
Oh, you mean in the bun factory?
No, not that sort of currents. I mean the old do-re-mi.
Well, this sounds very interesting, Mr. Burp. Did you do well?
Oh, yes, I'll say I did.
You did?
First of all, I took me £35 in English money over to France.
Yes.
And they give me 40,000 French francs.
Go on, yes.
Then I took me francs over to Holland. And they gave me 10,000 Dutch guilders.
That's good.
Yes, and I took me guilders to Russia. Did you? They gave me 50,000 rubles.
Did they?
Then I hid away all my rubles. You know what they gave me when I got back to England?
Now what?
6 months.
Poor old Burpee.
Oh, well, never mind, mate. I've got a smashing job now, you know.
Have you? Smashing job now?
Oh, I've got a smashing job.
What is it?
I'm an agent for the Help Yourself football pool. So
Oh.
I'm just calling around the houses, pick up some new clients.
Oh.
Now, wait a minute. How about you two boys having a bash? Sign this here paper, Mr. Jewell.
Yes.
And I'll fill in your coupon for you. There.
Righto, pass me the paper, Burpee. Pass me a pen.
Here you are, then.
Here you are, James. There you are.
Jimmy
That's it.
Jewell.
That's fine.
I've also given you a line of drawers.
Oh, we didn't ask for any drawers.
Okay, I'll take your drawers off.
Oh, yeah, sort of thing.
Now, listen, look, don't lock about, because there's not much time. Now, look, £10 wins a fortune.
Yes.
Money back if not satisfied, eh?
Go on, give him the money, Barney.
Here you are, Mr. Burp.
Okay, Tom, and listen, if you boys win, I'll bring your cheque along in person Monday.
If we win. But you said we were bound to win.
Well, yes, it's right, so you should, but there's many a slip twixt the cup final and the lip, you know.
Well, then give us back our £10.
Give it you back?
Yes.
Yes, you said we could have our money back if not satisfied.
Well, that's right.
Why?
But I am satisfied, very satisfied indeed. So long, mate.
Goodbye.
In 1950, the Postman was given his own series, Puffney Post Office, and 5 years later, John starred in Pertwee's Progress, which, despite the inclusion of Dick Emery and Fenella Fielding, was not the success he had hoped. Before we move on to the next important stage in John's radio career, I'd like to mention some of his film and stage work. His first speaking part on screen was in The Four Just Men in 1939, and he continued to appear in films after the war. Murder at the Windmill, Mr. Drake's Duck, and Will Any Gentleman are some of his credits. He was also invited by Peter Rogers and Gerald Thomas to join the Carry On series.
Well, to begin with, I said, oh, yeah, you bet, I'd love to. Because I saw this team, very successful team of people, everybody that I knew, working fairly regularly for the Carry On production. And so I said, yes, I'd like to do it. And so I did it. It was just a cameo, but it was a nice cameo. And I wasn't all that keen of being seen too much, so I covered myself in hair like an old Yorkshire Terrier. I mean, when I was a film extra years and years and years ago, before the war, I always endeavoured not to be seen. If I'd arrived on a set, that I'd go and hide behind a cupboard if I could. Because if you're seen and you're right in the front, most people pushing themselves forward to become stars overnight, then they wouldn't be used the next day. They said, no, we've seen him.
But he resisted the offer to become a regular performer in the series.
If I had been, I wouldn't have done it anyway, because I didn't want to become a part of the team. Because what happened was that I think that great actors were buried in the Carry On films. Sid James was a superbly good actor. So was Kenneth Williams. I mean, I've seen him in classic theatre. Marvellous actor. Kenneth Connor was a brilliant, brilliant character actor. So I think once they started, they got themselves stuck in them, and that's all they ever did. And that was one thing I didn't want to happen to me.
Jon was featured in Carry On Cleo, Carry On Screaming, and also in Carry On Cowboy, in which he played a sheriff.
And I said, well, could I make him blind? And they said, blind? I said, well, you know, pebble glasses so he can't really see. And they said, yeah, that's a funny idea. And I said, well, could I make him deaf? And they said, yes. And so he was everything. He was, you know, with the ear trumpet, and he was deaf, and he was blind, he couldn't see, and he shot the horse, I think, instead of the Rumpo Kid. And it was a lovely opportunity for satirising all those awful sheriffs I've seen, the Gabby Hayes playing.
Then, many years later, came what seemed like the chance of a lifetime.
My wife rang me, and she said, I've got great news for you. Your agent just rung. And she knew that I was very keen on Depardieu and his work, and he was doing the Columbus film. And so she rang up and said, I've got great news. Your agent rang, and they've got you a lovely cameo role in Columbus. And I said, oh, that's wonderful, good. They said, they're sending you the script, and you can read it tomorrow morning. And so the next day I was waiting at the top of the stairs for the postman to come, and there was a bonk, and I rushed downstairs, picked up the script, opened it up, and it was Carry On Columbus. I nearly died. I can't believe this.
You're listening to BBC Radio 2. I'm Una Stubbs, and this is Everybody Down, an affectionate tribute to Jon Pertwee. When he was a young man, many people remarked on Jon's resemblance to Danny Kaye. This likeness was put to anonymous use in 1954, when he doubled for the American star in British location shots for Knock on Wood, being seen from a distance and from behind. Another string to his bow was that he played the guitar, although he bemoaned the fact that he wasn't more proficient when he spoke to the Sunday Express in 1983.
My greatest regret is that I never studied music when I was young, because I love music passionately. Apart from playing the guitar, in my own bastardized way, I don't play an instrument.
However, his modest musical abilities did give rise to an early brush with a promising new talent, as he recalled when he was guest on the nostalgic Radio 2 programme Sounds Familiar.
When skiffle music started to get popular, the producer Jack Good rang me up one day and said, you play folk music, don't you? I said, yes. And he said, well, I'm going to get you in on the skiffle scene. And I said, oh, no, come on, I don't want to do that. And he said, oh, come on, just for a laugh. Come down and do some skiffle. I said, well, get me 3 terrible musicians and we'll do some skiffle. Anyway, they got me these gentlemen who were absolutely charming, and there was one rather short gentleman who only knew about 3 chords, and he needed 5 for this particular piece. And so after about 18 hours of instruction, I got the 5 into him. And this went down fairly well, and Jack said, well, I'm going to sign you up because it's a great success. Because all the kids took it seriously. You see, I was taking the mickey out of it and doing it for satire, and they were taking it seriously. And he said, I'm also signing up this young gentleman, this small fellow behind you, who played the 5 chords. And I said, well, I shouldn't bother to do that if I were you. He doesn't show a great deal of talent, I don't think, does he? He said, oh, yes, I think he's going to be very talented. And many years later, I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, oh, I've just been having lunch with a very important man in the pop business, Adam Faith. He sends you his very kindest regards. I said, well, it's very nice of him. I've never met him. He said, oh, yes, you have. You taught him 5 chords on the guitar.
Alongside his radio, film and television work, Jon continued to work in the theatre, starring in There's a Girl in My Soup in London and in New York, as well as in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum in London. And from time to time he visited the recording studios, making several LPs of songs from popular shows. And here are some examples.
I've always been, since quite a lad, cheery and gay when things were bad. That is a way I've always had. I look on the bright side. I've got a motto, always merry and bright. Look around and you will find every cloud is silver-lined. The sun will shine. Although the sky's a grey one, I've often said to myself, I've said, cheer up, Cully, you'll soon be dead. A short life and a gay one.
In this life, one thing counts. In the bank, large amounts. I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two. You've got to pick a pocket or two, boys. You got to pick a pocket or two.
Large amounts don't grow on trees. You've got to pick a pocket or two.
Let's show all of the how to do it, my dears. Why should we break our backs stupidly paying tax? Better get some untaxed income. Better pick a pocket or two. You've got to pick a pocket or two, boys. You've got to pick a pocket or two.
Why should we all break our backs? Better pick a pocket or two.
Who says crime doesn't pay?
The Lord above gave man an arm of iron, so he could do his job and never shirk. The Lord above gave man an arm of iron, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, someone else will do the blinking work. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, you'll never work. The Lord above made liquor for temptation, to see if man could turn away from sin. The Lord above made liquor for temptation, but with a little bit of luck, with a little bit of luck, when temptation comes, you'll give right in. With a little bit, with a little bit, with a little bit of luck, you'll give right in.
Thumbelina, Thumbelina, tiny little thing. Thumbelina dance, Thumbelina sing. Oh, Thumbelina, what's the difference if you're very small? When your heart is full of love, you're 9 feet tall. Though you're no bigger than my toe,
Than my toe,
than my toe,
than my toe,
than my toe.
than my toe.
Sweet Thumbelina, keep that glow.
Keep that glow.
And you'll grow, and you'll grow, and you'll grow. Thumbelina, Thumbelina, tiny little thing. Thumbelina dance, Thumbelina sing. Oh, Thumbelina, what's the difference if you're very small? When your heart is full of love, you're 9 feet tall.
Songs from the Arcadians, Oliver, My Fair Lady and Hans Christian Andersen. Not every theatrical enterprise in which John took part was blessed with critical success. In 1963, he was cast in the revue at the Duchess Theatre called See You Inside. But by then, Peter Cook and Company and Beyond the Fringe had sounded the death knell of the traditional intimate revue, as Eric Shorter noted in the Daily Telegraph.
This branch of the theatre must soon surrender its stage validity to cabaret and television. So it's no bad aim to dodge the modish column, even at the risk of bringing out chestnuts. And if anyone could make chestnuts sizzle on stage, it's Moira Fraser of the hockey voice and Jon Pertwee of the lean-to eyebrows.
Now back to the wireless, and there's one aspect of John's radio career we cannot unfortunately illustrate. In the 1950s, he appeared many times in shows like Workers' Playtime, Midday Music Hall, Variety Playhouse and The Forces Show, but none of his acts in these programmes have been retained in the archives. He would, of course, have had to abide by strict BBC guidelines in force at the time. This notice was attached to some of his contracts.
Suspension from future broadcasting in BBC programmes, as well as the immediate fading out of the remainder of your performance, will follow the interjection of any remarks, anecdotes or other material considered by the corporation to be offensive.
As far as we know, John's Variety Act remained resolutely inoffensive, as he entertained audiences in Margate, Stalybridge, Malmesbury and other exotic locations. Towards the end of the 1950s, when he was well established as a versatile actor and entertainer, another opportunity came his way.
After many years of doing radio shows for the BBC, I was asked to do a new series, and I talked to my producer, Alistair Scott Johnston, and he said, well, what kind of show would you like to do? And I said, I thought it was time to do a services show again, and having been in the Navy myself for 6 years, I thought we'd do a naval show.
All right, for Drake's sake, you get your money back. Get off! Get off, you perisher! Get out of it! Get out of it! Or I'll set Quentin Hogg on you. Let go! Let go of me. Here, will you take luncheon vouchers? Ooh, your canine friend's done it now. That was government property he just ripped. Ooh, my word, there's a draft. Constable, kindly close the gate. There's a shocking wind in me willows.
All right, see here, Pertwee. Now then, what is going on over here?
Don't blame me, Sergeant.
Constable, actually.
Good gracious, you do surprise me. A man born to be a chief superintendent if ever I saw one. Oh, well, let's dispense with the idle chit-chat and get them gates locked.
Eh? But we never lock the gates.
Then today had better be an exception. Otherwise the dockyard constabulary will be robbed of a potential chief superintendent.
You could be right.
Yeah.
Go on, up off out of it.
Go
All
on,
of you.
Get out of it.
You are trespassing on naval property. Welcome home, Chief.
Well, it's not home, Commander Murray, sir. It's sanctuary.
How right you are, sir. Oh, the very idea, Mr. Phillips. How mundane can you get? The whole idea is completely ludicrous and crossotical.
Now then, having disposed of the customary right on your return, Chief, who did you do, for how much, over what, at when, at where, and for why?
I have no idea what you are perpetrating about, Inspector.
Constable.
Still no news of your advancement? I was only going to say that if Pertwee don't cop a substantial amount of spondulics in the very near shortly, Pertwee will shortly be considerably shorter than his substantials.
Ooh, nasty.
The first edition of the Navy Lark was broadcast on March the 29th, 1959, and Alistair Scott Johnson cast Leslie Phillips and Dennis Price to serve alongside John on board HMS Troutbridge. Dennis Price left after 2 series and was replaced by Stephen Murray, a fine classical actor. He was a little surprised to be there because no one had ever asked him to play comedy before. Now, earlier on, in the excerpt from Up the Pole, we heard John using a voice that bears a remarkable resemblance to that of Chief Petty Officer Pertwee. But where did the character come from? There's a clue in this story from his one-man show, which follows on from his posting away from HMS Hood.
Well, we went then from then on survivor's leave, and I went down to Portsmouth Barracks as a CW candidate. And while I was at the CW candidate, I met up with a man called Chief Petty Officer Branch, who used to say, "Righto, lads! Right, Mr. Bell!" And it was one of these people that everybody was frightened of. And he said, "Righto, come on in, Pee-wee, come here." My God, he said, "Get your bloody hair cut, you look like a bleeding chrysanthemum." And I corpsed, and I started to laugh. He said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Oh, you, sir." He said, what are you laughing at me for? I'm not supposed to be funny." I said, "Well, you are, sir, you're very funny." He said, "You're supposed to be frightened of me." And I said, "Well, I'm not, sir." He said, "Well, try, for Christ's sake."
Oh, there you are, Chief. Any ideas why Commander Murray wants to see us up here on the quarterdeck?
No, Mr. Phillips. I was hoping you had. But whatever it is, I hope it won't take too long. Pertwee's bulwarks are nearly frozen to the bulkheads.
Frozen to
What heads?
Bulkheads. Yeah, but I suppose in your case, this is no time to turn professional. So for your benefit, Mr. Phillips, sir, walls.
Chief Petty Officer Pertwee was something of a rogue and not, perhaps, as courageous as members of the senior service are supposed to be. He was also adept at flattery when he thought it was politic to ladle on the adulation. So, when confronted with his ambitious commanding officer, Henry Povey, Pertwee knew just what to do.
What is all this about a ship's concept? I think it only fair to inform you that I do simply magnificent farmyard impersonations. If it's not too late, I wonder if I may take part in the cabaret.
Yes, well, the programme is rather full, sir, but if you insist, you could close the first half with one of your recessive identifications.
Oh, no. I thought I might do some of my unbelievable farmyard impersonations. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Plop.
Just a moment, sir. Just a moment, Captain Povey, sir. Just stay right where you are, so don't move, sir. I couldn't hear you for a moment because there's a rooster in here who's just laid an egg. Now, don't move your feet or you might tread on it, sir.
Oh, no, Chief, it wasn't a rooster laying an egg. It was me.
But it can't have been, sir. It can't have been. Officers of the Royal Navy don't go around laying eggs. They may drop a clanger or two, but they don't lay eggs.
No, really, Chief, it was me.
I'll put you in after Jiggling Josephine and Crumpet Chloe, the juggling juggernauts.
I don't think I ought
Not to worry, sir. The way they spin their plates is completely novel. You'll be in no danger of having to crunch your way through the crockery to do your cock-a-doodle-doo and your cluck-clucks.
Thank you so much, Chief. I've got others, you know. Here, now, listen to this.
Quack, quack, quack.
Gloop. That's a duck laying an egg in mud.
The strengths of the Navy Lark, which ran for 18 years, were the inventive scripts of Laurie Wyman, who was later joined by George Evans, and the high standard of acting. This was not a show full of comedians, but of excellent character actors. Henry Povey, who you've just heard, was played by Richard Caldecott, and his overpowering wife, Ramona, was played by Heather Chasen, who also appeared as Wren Chasen. Other parts were taken by Ronnie Barker, Tenniel Evans, and Michael Bates. Here are Messrs. Barker and Evans in a typical scene from a 1961 edition in which naval discipline is on parade.
Are you still proceeding with the charge?
Well, I inspected the stores again this morning, as you requested, Chief, and I admit the blankets are all there now, but I think we'll have a word with Fatso first.
That's it. Right, and Fatso, remember what I told you, and you're in the clear.
How I got lumbered for this, I'll never know. I'm not happy, I'm not happy. I'm not.
Well, it's just as well. You go in there laughing all over your chops and you'll go straight in the rattle.
I probably will anyway.
Don't argue. Out! Hip, 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 hip. Oh, cat! I will Stephen Johnson, sir. Charged that he did mislay or remove Admiralty property, sir, as listed. Blankets woolen, 3 regions issue, sir.
Yes, all right. Just a minute. Now then, Johnson, you'll recall that when I inspected the stores yesterday, the Chief proved beyond all shadow of a doubt, as far as he was concerned, and entirely to his own satisfaction, that you must have been in sole charge of these blankets when they disappeared.
Yes, I remember that very clearly. I had my mouth open at the time, sir.
Yes, I noticed. However, at the Chief's request, I inspected stores again this morning, and the blankets are now correct. I also inspected Able Seaman Johnson's bunk this morning, and I found there were none of his blankets to be seen.
Hey, Fatso's blankets gone of all the thieving. No wonder I was going to be in the clear. Me bones will be frozen to the cauliflower.
No, they won't, Johnson. I have a pretty fair idea what's been going on, so I intend to dismiss the charge.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And whilst you're here, Chief, I thought you might care to make a small donation of, say, £3 to the ship's comfort fund.
3 quid. 3 quid? What, from me?
Accepted, Chief. Very generous of you. Now, as treasurer of the fund, I award £3 to Johnson for the purpose of supplying himself with, additional blankets. Next.
Ghosting! Kaye! Out! Requestman, Abelson, Goldstein.
What is it, Goldstein?
Well, sir, I don't want to be difficult.
Splendid. Nice to have seen you. Carry on, Chief.
Goldstein, Mail!
Wait a minute. Yes, sir, if I might interrupt as the prisoner's friend.
Prisoner's friend? He's not.
Well, sir, I don't want to be difficult.
Splendid. Nice to have seen you. Carry on, Chief.
Goldstein, Mail!
Wait a minute. Yes, sir, if I might interrupt as the prisoner's friend.
Prisoner's friend? He's not a prisoner.
Yet. Well, as the requestman's mate, then, sir. According to my book here, it definitely states that the rating of the first part, who is not necessarily of the second part, is entitled to state in the first part, hereinafter, referred to as the statement in the second part, which doesn't prohibit the sailor of the first part, or the second hand, if the defense rests.
Yes, just as well. Or the officer of the first part would have booted the officer of the second part smartly in the third part.
In his scripts, Laurie Wyman often capitalised on John's ability as a verbal gymnast and allowed the words to just tumble out.
Morning, gents all, and it flipping well isn't. Oh, I've known old Thunderguts to play some dirty tricks in my time, but this one takes the biscuit clean out of one's cake hole. Oh, yes, he's always been known as a dyed-in-the-wool underhanded snake in the grass, and that's by his loyal friends. But after this lot, I reckon he's so low he could walk under a caterpillar without taking his cap off. Yeah, talking of caps, all it's not gold that glitters on his tit-for. It couldn't be. It's rusty tinsel sailing under false colours. Like it's mendacious, unveracious, shifty, shady, double-dyed, double-faced, smoothly spoken, mealy-mouthed, hypocritical, lip-serving, truth-mincing, humbugging Una. And I've finished. Cool. He's put the boot in your career, Mr. Murray, sir.
He's what?
You've been connobbled, sir.
Yeah, may I know in what way I'm about to be connobbled?
You certainly may, sir. We've just received this signal addressed to you personal from Captain Povey, sir. Don't have no truck with it, Mr. Murray, sir. It'll only upset you.
Yeah, possibly, Chief, but I'll risk it, so let go.
Well, if you insist...
I do.
Then I shan't resist.
Better not. Now then, what is all this about? Subject redundancy?
One tried to warn one, but one is obviously still shaken to one's rigid and liable to do one's nut.
One certainly is. This is ridiculous.
What is?
Old Thunderguts is trying to have me bowler-hatted because of age. Just a minute. Why only me? How old are you, Mr. Phillips?
Me? I'm twiddly auntie 4.
Later on in the series, following the death of Michael Bates, John began playing some other parts to utilise his vocal dexterity a little more. Here he is as an Admiral being visited by representatives from HMS Troutbridge.
Admiral, I would like to make it perfectly clear that I had absolutely nothing to do with...
Shh! Not another word, Captain. You should know better than that. Walls have ears. Close the soundproof door.
Admiral, I really must insist...
Not a chance, Povey. You should have thought of that before. Now, that door's got a time lock on it, so try and forget about it. Try to think of something else.
That wasn't what I...
Quiet! Loose lips sink ships. That you might let something go in an unguarded moment.
I must point out that all this has nothing to do with me.
Don't you realize that every word we utter could be overheard by them?
Even if we go to the boys' room to wash our hands, we must remember that down every plug hole is an enemy lug hole.
There was another senior officer whose identity John assumed from time to time, Vice Admiral Burwasher, whose thoughts could be heard as well as his conversation, a trick ideally suited to radio.
Come in. Captain Povey and Vice Admiral Burwasher to see you, sir, and you're welcome, and I'm off.
Come in, gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
Oh, yes, thank you very much, yes. Very nice of you, yes. Where the devil are you, Burwasher? Hello. This is a damn small room. Hang on, that's ugly. The floor's moving. Or is it you? No. Got it. Yes, must be on a ship. Well done, Burwasher. Brilliant thinking. You figured that out in a flash. Now then, think, man, think. What the devil are you doing on a ship? I don't know what you should do. You're the Vice Admiral, am I? Yes. Hello, these three idiots are looking at you. I think they're expecting you to say something.
Are they?
Yes, they are. Think, man, think. There must be something you can say. You talked to people before. Got it. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, well, that should hold them for a bit. Not long. Give me a bit of a breather. Now then, pull yourself together, Burwasher. How on earth did you get here? By car, you fool. Oh, yes, of course, yes. Yes, that reminds me. On the way back to wherever I'd come from, I do hope I've got enough petrol to get me to one of those garages giving away the bird life pictures. I only want 2 for the set.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. All I'm short of is a robin redbreast and a blue tit.
There is one other character who John played in the Navy Lark, which was a throwback to his school days and to Waterlogged Spa.
My name is Weatherby Wet. And I am, amongst other things, organist at the chapel.
I know all about this really old year. Oh? He's the one what lent a book on organ blowing to my daughter, the Honourable Phoebe. How about that flipping buttonhole what's nearly as big as yourself? Is that another hobby?
Yes, I have always shown a marked partiality for the tender nurturing of blood-red peonies in my window box.
Well, what made you join the Territorials?
Mother.
What would you do without your mother, Wet?
Probably for a short time go quite mad.
In what way, Wet?
Probably
Yes?
Desert my blood-red peonies for a riot of purple pink.
There was the voice and part of the name that was used in the Navy Lark, but there was one more element to be added. In 1964, he remembered the lady who ran the tuck shop at one of his schools.
And she, being a polite old soul, always had a shot at trying to remember the name of the boy she was serving. So you say, 1 long bun, 1 short bun, please, Mrs. Todd. And she says, thank you very much, Mr. Next. And so she always had a shot of trying to remember who it was and always said, next. She never knew what anybody's name was, but she thought this would be more polite.
So there you have the voice, the name, and the vocal gimmick that became Commander Weatherby.
This is the Ministry of Defense. Extension 5, extension 5237. Command Come on, to hell with it, I'm out, phone somebody else. Now, let me see, where was I?
Right, you'll do.
I'm gonna do.
I am the distinguished wife of Captain Povey, who had the honour to be my husband. And don't you blah-hoo me either. Henry Povey, the man my dear mother warned me not to marry, but like a fool I did, is gadding about on the ocean waves with some of your little sailor friends in HMS Tripod.
Well?
No, it's not.
Oh.
I refuse to permit him to go on the rampage and enjoy himself behind my back. I'm glad to agree. Now, I've seen every other fool in every other office in this ridiculous building, and you're the first sensible man I've met. I demand to be flown out at the ministry's expense to Monte, whatever it is in South America, to see what my conniving husband is up to.
Madam, under no circumstances, to hell with it. Be at London Airport.
Good boy. Then don't let this happen again. Henry Pertwee is a happily married man. He may be in the Navy, but he is not supposed to go to sea.
After the news, we'll move on to the television era and recall Jon Pertwee as Doctor Who and, of course, Worzel Gummidge. This is Una Stubbs on 88 to 91 FM, Radio 2 from the BBC.
Radio 2.
Across the void beyond the mind, the empty space that circles time, I see where others stumble blind to seek a truth they never find. Eternal wisdom is my guide. I am the Doctor. Through cosmic waste the TARDIS flies to taste the secret source of life. A presence science can't deny exists within, outside, behind the latitude of human minds. I am the Doctor. My voyage dissects the course of time. Who knows, you say, but are you right? Who searches deep to find the light that glows so darkly in the night? Toward that point, I guide my flight. As fingers move to end mankind, metallic teeth begin their grind. With sword of truth, I turn to fight the satanic powers of the night. Is your faith before your mind? Know me. Am I the Doctor?
If you've just tuned in, this is Everybody Down, a tribute to Jon Pertwee, and I'm Una Stubbs. Jon became the third Doctor Who at the beginning of 1970, and he made that record in 1972. He first heard that the part was available from his Navy Lark colleague, Tenniel Evans, who told him that Patrick Troughton was leaving.
So I rang my agent and I said, Richard, here, I said, I've got a very good idea. How about putting me up to play Doctor Who? And so he rang up to the producer and he said, hello, this is Richard Stone. I'd like to suggest one of my clients to take over from Patrick Troughton as Doctor Who. And they said, who? And he said, Jon Pertwee. He said, may we read you our short list that we compiled 18 months ago? He said, yes. And they read it and my name was second on it.
The first name, by the way, was Ron Moody. Jon's tenure as the travelling Time Lord was characterised by the distinctive costume which he adopted, a contrast to the one worn by his predecessor.
And it all started quite by accident. My producer said put something on for a photographic session when I'd been given the job. And I found my grandfather's Inverness cape, which I'd always rather liked, which I used to wear at night sometimes for premieres. And I put on a blue velvet smoking jacket and a Mr. Fish crimply shirt, white frilly shirt, and put this on and said, what about that then? More as a joke than anything. And they said, that looks beautiful, we'll love it. But how on earth are we going to get you to be wearing these clothes? So on the first episode that I did, I was wearing the same clothes as Pat Troughton. I rolled out of the TARDIS in scruffy old clothes and was taken to the hospital. But as I wanted to escape, I went into the doctor's waiting room and nicked various articles of clothing and put them all together, and that's how we came out.
Jon's doctor spent quite a lot of time on this planet rather than making intergalactic excursions. One story, The Daemons, was set in a supposedly idyllic English village and introduced devil worship to the Saturday tea time audience, as well as a tiny spacecraft. The Doctor's companion here is Jo Grant, played by Katie Manning, all wide-eyed innocence and prone to kidnap by any passing alien.
A spaceship 15 inches long?
That's right. Mind you, when it landed, it was 200 feet long and 30 feet across. But they diminished it, just as they diminished themselves, which accounts for the heat wave and the freeze-up.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite follow you.
Oh, come on, Joe. E equals mc squared.
You're the doctor.
Look, when you lose mass, the energy has to go somewhere.
I see. So all we've got to deal with is something which is either too small to see or 30 feet tall. Can incinerate you or freeze you to death. Turns stone images into homicidal monsters and looks like the very devil.
Exactly.
Well, I still don't get it. I mean, what's the creature doing here? I mean, why did they ever come?
To help Homo sapiens kick out Neanderthal man. They've been coming and going ever since. Oh, the Greek civilization, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, they were all inspired by the Daemons.
But this thing the Professor let loose is evil, you said so yourself. And now you're trying to say that they've been helping mankind for 100,000 years.
Yes, and you say they come from another planet. Well, then what's all this jazz about witchcrafts and covens and so on?
Look, don't you see, all the magical traditions are just remnants of their advanced science, and that is what the Master is using.
Then these creatures are linked with the black arts. They are evil.
Amoral, perhaps. They help Earth, but on their own terms. It's a scientific experiment to them, just another laboratory rat.
Then what's the Master up to?
He's established a link with the demon. What worries me is the choice. Domination by the Master or total annihilation.
Every hero needs an adversary, otherwise there is nothing to be heroic about. And the Doctor's most persistent enemy was the Master, an errant Time Lord who refused to obey the rules. Roger Delgado was the first actor to take on the role, and here the two men meet in a scene from Terror of the Autons, in which innocent-looking daffodils fire suffocating plastic masks at people.
Good afternoon, Doctor. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important.
No, indeed not. You've come here to kill me, of course?
But not without considerable regret.
How very comforting.
You see, Doctor, you're my intellectual equal. Almost. I have so few worthy opponents. When they've gone, I always miss them.
How did you get in here?
Oh, don't be trivial, Doctor. I see you've been working on the Nestine Autojet. My own small contribution to their invasion plan.
Vicious, complicated, and inefficient. Typical of your way of
now,
thinking.
come, Doctor. Death is always more frightening when it strikes invisibly.
Tell me, how do you intend to activate these flyers?
Oh, by radio impulse, which the Nestines will send. I shall open a channel for them. We've distributed 450,000 of these daffodils, so when 450,000 people fall dead, the country will be disrupted.
And in the confusion, the Nestines will land their invasion force.
Exactly. It's a shame that you can't be here to enjoy the chaos and destruction with me. Goodbye, Doctor.
Wait, don't shoot!
Doctor, you do disappoint me. We Time Lords are expected to face death with dignity.
Oh, no! Don't worry. He's not going to kill me.
That is your last mistake.
If you fire that thing, you will never be able to leave this planet.
You're bluffing on an empty hand, Doctor?
I'm not bluffing, and my hand, as you can see, is not empty. If you kill me, you will destroy the dematerialization circuit from your own TARDIS. You recognize it, I feel sure.
Where did you get that?
The circus.
You underestimate me, Doctor. Let me be quite plain. Either you hand that unit over to me now, or I kill Miss Grant.
Doctor Who's most celebrated enemies were the Daleks, although John wasn't very impressed by them. He said they were ridiculous, put together with a sink plunger, an egg whisk, and 24 tennis balls. After an interval of nearly 20 years, John returned to the role of Doctor Who, but this time on the radio. He was reunited with Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, played by Nicholas Courtney, and in this scene from The Paradise of Death, John demonstrates another essential talent, the ability to spout all kinds of technical gobbledygook as if he knew what it meant.
What are you doing, Doctor?
The psychotelemetric circuit. Unless I repair it, we'll never get to Paragon. I mean, we know where the planet is, within a few thousand light years.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, well, I do. Sonic screwdriver, please, Jeremy.
Do you mean this?
Yes, that's the one then. Yeah, plug in the soldering arm, will you, Roger? We can spend an eternity searching. I mean, TARDIS will take us to the right neck of the woods, and then home in on Paragon using this and her cyclotelemeter.
And what's that?
That, it's the hair of the dog, to coin a phrase. Or rather, the non-dog. I was abstracted it when the professor wasn't looking. Give me the soldering iron, will you please, Jeremy? Good chap. Look, Brigadier, if you can't find anything useful to do, may I suggest you go and ring Freeth and try putting the fear of God, or alternatively the United Nations, into him?
I did my best with Freeth, but even if he was lying, it seems that he has no way of getting in touch with Tragan.
Look, if they're into hyperspace, or out the other side, that's perfectly true, of course.
Does that mean we can't catch them after all? I mean, what about Sarah?
Oh, don't worry. TARDIS has a trick worth 2 of that up her sleeve. By doubling back in the time vortex, she can effectively start before Tragan. We can be on Paragon, waiting for him to arrive.
But what about the, limitation thingamy? I thought you told me
that... the Blinovit limitation effect? Well, that only prevents her taking us back into our own past. Really, Brigadier, I sometimes think you have a very shaky grasp of the special theory of relativity. Right, that should do it. Jeremy, bring the tools, will you?
But I thought you were going in a rocket thingy. I mean, that's only an old police phone box.
Wait till you get inside.
Right, that's the way. Quickly now. I'm going to close the doors.
I say. I mean, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the...
Look, what are you doing in here, boy?
You asked me to bring the tools.
Yes, well, it's too late now. I've activated the coordinates. You'll have to come too.
By the way, you might like to know that John's other radio adventure as the Doctor, The Ghosts of N-Space, will be repeated on Radio 2 at 8:30 in the evening, starting on Tuesday, December the 17th. Although he enjoyed playing the Doctor, John was quite happy to parody the whole idea in 1995 when he appeared in the Radio 4 series The Skivers, auditioning a prospective female companion.
Come in, come in.
Gosh, it's big in here. Outside it looks so small, but inside it's so sort of big.
Yes, well, it's dimensionally transcendental. You must be another applicant for the assistant's job.
That's right. I'm Jemima Katie.
Excellent, excellent. First hyphenated name today. Well, you've got the mousy hair, but that's side parting.
I'm sorry, Doctor. If I get the job, I promise it'll go straight into a centre parting.
Excellent, Jemima Katie. A-levels?
None.
A-lines?
15, all pinafore, beige and polyester.
Roll neck jumper?
It's polyester, it's beige, and it's rubbish.
Perfect, perfect. Now, what about previous experience, Jemima Katie?
I think I'm perfectly qualified, Doctor. You see, my last job involved me running down a lot of pointless beige corridors and then hiding in doorways and being tied up in dark basements a lot.
Gallifrey?
No, Whitehall.
Good, good, good. You don't fancy me, do you?
Not a bit. I see you in a purely avuncular light.
Excellent, excellent. But, be a bit gruff with me sometimes. I rather like that. Now, there is one last thing, my dear. When you get captured, it's absolutely vital that you quiver your lips a lot. Can you do that? Excellent, Jemima Katie. You've got the job. Well done. Oh, one last thing. Could you make your thighs just a little bit chunkier?
Of course, Doctor. Of course.
Jemima Katie was played by Melanie Gedroych. Unfortunately for the Doctor, his other companions, Tim DeYoung and Nick Golson, were not as dedicated to his mission and time machine as he was.
Doctor?
Yes?
We've got a letter for you.
Oh, yes? Have a look. Dear Doctor, we resign as your assistants. Enclosed there are luncheon vouchers. But you can't resign.
But the TARDIS is so rubbish. There's nowhere to sit down. It's so tiring living in a place with no furniture or telly.
Yeah, and the pizza delivery people won't deliver to the 5th dimension. They're starving.
Yes, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm moving on anyway. I'm going to combine my 2 greatest characters, Doctor Who and Worzel Gummidge, and call it Dr. Gummidge.
Well, I suppose that's better than Worzel Who.
I'm going to fly around the space-time continuum, scaring away alien birds. And I shall talk something like this.
Oh, I'm the general.
Brigadier! Watch out!
Put me up a red on, Joe. For a cup of tea and a slice of cake.
We've got to get back to Gallifrey. The master's eating all the barley.
Oh, shoot. Go on up it, you stupid...
Yes,
Hang about, my dears. Won't keep you but a minute. I'm putting my singing head on, you see. Can't sing without my singing head on, can I? That's it. Off we go. Till Mother Nature ends, I'll be Worzel to my friends. And just like John and Sue, you must speak my language too. Not yakety if you please. You must speak in Worzelese. You put a word after W and a word after O. You put a word after R, and it's away we go. Put a word after Z and put a word after E. A word after L, a L after word, and you're left with me.
And that brings us neatly to John's last and perhaps greatest creation, the unkempt Scarecrow from Scatterbrook Farm, Worzel Gummidge. The character was created by Barbara Eufen Todd, and John originally planned to make a feature film but couldn't raise the money. So he asked Keith Waterhouse and Willis Hall to prepare a half-hour version for television. This was hawked around until Southern Television saw the potential and put it into production.
It was certainly the greatest fun thing that I've ever been involved with. I loved it. Because you ran the gamut of emotions from A to Z in 25 minutes. And if you got stuck, you changed your head. So you can be anything. You can be a singing head, or a writing head, or a thinking head, or any guy, a daft head.
The notion of Worzel having different heads was in fact John's idea, and it was an effective comic device. As to the voice that he used, well, it was a direct descendant of the Postman in Waterlogged Spa. I had the pleasure of playing Aunt Sally, a wonderful part, even though she was hardly all sweetness and light, and treated Worzel abominably all the time. For Worzel, Aunt Sally's foul temper seemed to be an aphrodisiac, and the more irritable she became, the more devoted he became. In the trial of Worzel Gummidge, poor Worzel was in for a nasty shock, and presiding over the hearing was the crowman, beautifully portrayed by Geoffrey Belden.
Read the charge, Sergeant.
With respect, sir, I can't read, sir.
Oh, very well. I'll read it myself. Worzel Hedgerow Gummidge, you are charged with that on divers occasions you roam the countryside making trouble instead of carrying out your duties. That you abuse the gifts of speech and movement bestowed upon you. That you used your thinking head as a football and that you knocked off my head with a potato. How do you plead?
Beg your pardon, Your Majesty. I've never pled.
Not guilty, I suppose. You always were a terrible liar. Now, do you want your trial held in Worzelese or Yakety?
In Worzelese, if it's all the same to you, you protuberant.
Yes, well, it's not all the same to me. We'll have it in Yakety, or else we'll be here all day. Who is the prosecutor?
Call the prosecutor!
Aunt Sally? Oh, it ain't fair. Why should Aunt Sally call me a bad lad? She's worse nor what I am.
Oh, no, I haunt.
Oh, yes, you is.
Oh, no, I haunt.
Oh, yes, you is.
Haunt.
Is.
You heard what Aunt Sally said, laddie. She haunt.
What's it going to do with you, beetroot face?
Sergeant Beetroot Face, if you don't mind, Sonny Jim. And I'll tell you what it's got to do with me. Aunt Sally and I have a little understanding.
Aunt Sally, tell me it ain't true. You ain't going to marry that there rotten old beetroot, are you? He's only good for slicing up and pickling.
I may marry him. I may not. We shall have to see.
Aunt Sally isn't going to marry anybody, and if Aunt Sally doesn't get on with the case for the prosecution, Aunt Sally's going to find herself back in her trunk in Mr. Shepherd's attic.
Worzel was a simple soul, a trusting child, really, and his character was perfectly illustrated in John's inspired performance. You couldn't help feeling sorry for him when Aunt Sally continually abused him.
You disgusting, revolting, common scarecrow, making an exhibition of yourself. What exactly do you think you're doing of?
I was weeping and sniffling, Aunt Sally, and pulling the wings of these pretty flowers what I give you.
And who gave you permission, Prince?
No one. I don't need no ignition for to weep and snivel. I can weep and snivel till the cows come home and no one can stop me.
I wasn't inferring to your disgusting weeping and a snivelling, Worzel Gummidge. I was inferring to you pulling my pretty flowers to bits. And what are they doing lying about on the dirty, filthy ground?
Well, you choked him, man. Not me.
Shut them! Shut them! Dropped them, you mean. And when a lady, such as what I is, drops something, Worzel Gummidge, a gentleman, if he is a gentleman, usually picks them up. So get on with it, you half-witted hay bag, and be quick about it!
Yes, I'll tell him. Right away, I'll tell him.
Unfortunately, when Southern Television lost its franchise, their successors, TVS, decided to drop the series, but it did rise again in 1987, when some more programmes were made in New Zealand. Aunt Sally, a valuable antique, was shipped down under, and inevitably Worzel accompanied her on the long flight.
Worzel?
Yes, Aunt Sally?
I'm hungry. Have you got any chocolate?
Milk or plain?
Milk.
Sorry, ain't got no milk, Aunt Sally.
Well, very well. Plain, then, you exasperating scarecrow.
I ain't got no plain neither.
What chocolate do you have?
I ain't got no chocolate, Aunt Sally.
Oh, well, you wouldn't have been thoughtless and stupid. Oh, well, just have to wait till we get to New Zealand, that's all.
Your Aunt Sally, what's New Zealand like, anyway?
Very nice little town, from all I've heard. Twice as better in America.
It must be quite far, too, judging from what my stomach just said.
If you're to be my honoured escort in New Zealand, Worzel Gummidge, which I suspect is what you're a-doing of, following me like this, just keep your straw-bag stomach out of it.
Anything you said, Aunt Sally.
And another thing, in case we do get separated, when they roll out the red carpet for me and you have to get into New Zealand through the servants' entrance, just remember, I'm staying at a big house called Pickawacka-Wicka-Wickle.
Please, Pickawacka-Wickle?
Or is it Pickapocka-Peckle?
Plickly-Wockly-Lily-Willy.
Yes.
Plickly-Wockly-Lily-Willy.
Yes. Worzel?
Yes, Aunt Sally?
I'm hungry.
It don't take much to tempt me. Don't need no begging and pleading.
Your stomach is always empty. Your face forever needs feeding.
If you want to disarm me, tease me, charm me, command me to do your slaving, I'm yours to obey forever and a day, if you'll only remember my craving.
And after all, it don't take a lot to stop you getting tearful.
Just three things, one cold, one hot, and both of them keeps me cheerful. A slice of cake and a cup of tea suits Aunt Sally, so that suits me. Offer us the world, but all we'll take is a cup of tea and a slice of cake. A cup of tea and a slice of cake. When the moon comes up or at daybreak, ever after we'll live happily. A slice of cake and cups of tea.
A cup of tea, fill it to the brim. Suits Aunt Sally, so that suits him. They don't want a bottle of fancy wine. Offer them a brewery and they'll decline. A slice of cake, crunchy, nice and thin. Smell rich and icing they can lick. Ever, ever after they'll live happily. On slice of cake, on slices of cake, on slice of cake, on slices of cake, on slice of cake, and cups of tea.
That was a song from a stage show based on the Worzel Gummidge stories, which we first performed in 1980. And those happy memories of Worzel bring us almost to the end of the story. John Devon Roland Pertwee died in May this year while on holiday in America with his wife Ingeborg. And, as the last 90 minutes have shown, he left behind a remarkable gallery of characters. Robin Fly, Commander High Price, the Postman, Doctor Who, Chief Petty Officer Pertwee, Commander Weatherby, and Worzel Gummidge are just some of them. He was, I have to say, a fairly forthright man. Nick Smurthwaite, writing in The Independent, perceptively summed him up.
Despite a reputation for being quick-tempered, egocentric and generally difficult, Pertwee always preferred working as part of a team, not the solo star turn. For all his raffish flamboyance and outward self-assurance, at heart he was as insecure and thin-skinned as the next actor.
John's Navy Lark associate, George Evans, added that no one could possibly say that Jon Pertwee was bland. He knew exactly what he wanted and took great pains to let his associates know what it was. to be an individual and an actor. And talking to the Daily Star in 1986, he admitted that he had a bad temper, but said that when he started shouting, it was I who calmed him down. This is Una Stubbs, the Peacemaker, and you've been listening to Everybody Down, a recollection of the life and career of Jon Pertwee. The readings were by John Stone. The programme was compiled and written by David Ryder and produced by Richard Edis. Now, just before we set sail for a 30-minute voyage on HMS Troutbridge, one more song. In 1973, John appeared in a revival of the musical Irene, which was first produced in 1919. In the course of the show, he sang a song called They Go Wild, Simply Wild Over Me. And so they did. From Waterlogged Spa to Worzel Gummidge. Goodbye.
To the ladies I was nothing but another pretty face. I'd never make first base with just my pretty face. But when I took my needle and began to make a dress, eureka, I discovered the secret of success. They go wild, simply wild over me. I can boast I'm the toast of gay Paris. The ladies seem to pine for a service such as mine. I take them, remake them, it's all too divine. Anything I would do for a fee. With the thimble I'm nimble as can be. Each time a bodice I adjust, adding inches to the bust, they go wild, simply wild over me. Although I do not doubt myself, my horn I hate to toot. And though I should be mute, I'm obviously a beaut. It's strange how they adore me so, the French would call it fool. For what I did for them girls, I'm here to do for you. All the girls that you see in Paris look their best when they're dressed by little me. I take each frock and frill, and to add an extra thrill, I tease them and squeeze them, it all goes on the bill. In the US of A, I should be. It's a grand land of opportunity. For when the women wear my clothes, and the men pay through the nose, they go wild, simply wild over me.